Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. So today I'm joined by the beautiful KJ Alfrey. KJ, how you doing today?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great.
I am super excited to have you here. But before we talk about why you're here, KJ, I would like for the people that don't know you to get to know you a little bit. You are an actor and comedian based out of LA. You've been in the horror film Body Count, as well as Queen Malvolia's season seven Final Girl. And this is epic because that's where you were nominated for the award for Best Actress. So, what was that like for you? Queen Malvolia, huge, we love Queen Malvolia here. So what was it like for you to get that?
I am just amazed with Jen Mangle and her persona and character and the amazing Queen Malvolia. And she just, I've learned so much from her, and especially being in the horror genre, she really knows how to make something with a feeling and something that's thoughtful but fun. It was fun and a lot of work, and she, as a director and writer, that really upped my game. She made me a better actor, and yeah, I really feel like horror is a very delicate balance because it's fun and it can be campy, but that just means that the acting and the story just has to be told in a much more truthful, stronger way, actually. So it's fun. But yeah, she's just amazing. I never in my life would have thought I would be so um fortunate enough to be in the Queen Malvolia universe.
And like I said, here at Sledgehammer Horror, we are huge fans of Jen. We're huge fans of Queen Malvolia. She's one of the nicest, kindest people you could ever hope to meet. So hearing you wax her car, like it definitely, it's very much justified because she's absolutely amazing. Um, but you've also done a lot more in a horror scope too, you've had the privilege of doing horror promos, videos for horror events like with haunted attractions.
Yes.
You like things like so horror is not something that's out of the realm for you, but something that you do love as well, which I think goes hand in hand with horror is comedy.
Mm,
Um, both
yeah.
are all about timing. If you don't have the right timing in horror, your scares don't land. If you don't have the right comedy and timing, your punchline doesn't land.
Right.
And you've performed comedy at Flappers, Hollywood Comedy, the Ice House, so many different things. So, what got you started in stand-up comedy? Because I still feel like a large portion of people that aren't huge into stand-up comedy still view female comics as taboo almost. You know, so
Yeah.
what got you started in the world of comedy?
I actually have always, in the back of my mind, have wanted to do stand-up comedy. I grew up with George Carlin and Richard Pryor and all these great, like you said, it's not easy to list off a lot of really high-profile female stand-up comedians. And so I've always had it in the back of my mind. It always looked like such fun. And the writer strike happened in LA, and then the writer strike happened in LA, and I wasn't really working, and I really wanted to be creative. So I was like, well, now is just probably the best time to get into stand-up comedy. And I went to Flappers and I started talking to comedians. I started going to open mics and really connecting with other female comedians and asking them how they do what they do, why they're doing it. And I met just such a wonderful community that just embraced me. And the wonderful thing about stand-up comedy is that it's, again, it comes back to being real and being authentic and being, true. And it allowed me to get a better sense of myself,
Yeah.
because the audience all around, whether it's horror or comedy, they're not stupid. They're actually extremely smart. And so they can, if you're bluffing, if you're not real, if you're pushing, if you're forcing any type of reaction or emotion, they know, and it's not fun for them. So stand-up comedy, yeah, I never thought that I would find that world. And every time I do a show, I'm like, well, it's my last. I'm retired now. I'm never gonna do stand-up again. But it's been such a gift, just along with the horror, because they, yeah, like you said, they go hand in hand.
Mhm. I've always felt that way, and that's why I think a lot of the best comedians make the best horror writers. And like a lot of the best horror directors because they know about timing. They know what makes their audience click. So that's why I think that's such a hand in hand thing because they know how to get that reaction out of an audience. You know, all you gotta do is spin it. There's such a fine line between what can make you laugh and what can make you scared. So I think that that's an amazing part of why horror comedy is, especially for me, my favorite subgenre of horror.
Yes.
Um,
Oh, yes. Yes.
and you also, you are based out of LA, but you were born and raised in Denver, and you spent a lot of your summers at the Stanley Hotel. So what's
Yes.
that like?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I was very I was born in Denver. All the rest of my family is from Texas though. So we would spend summers in Texas. But my favorite is when every summer my grandparents had a cabin up in Estes Park, which is in the Rocky Mountain National Park. And we would always go to the Stanley Hotel, and all it took was for them taking me there once, going on the tour, hearing about all the ghost stories. That's what it started my love of Stephen King too.
Yeah,
And every single summer I would always say, please, can we go to the Stanley Hotel? And they're just like, you've been on that, you can give the tour yourself at this point. Because I loved it and I was obsessed. And one summer I actually had the good fortune of being there while they were filming the new updated uh, The Shining TV series.
hmm
And so that was a trip too. So it's just I have such a love for the Stanley Hotel and the history and all of it. So and
yeah,
the backstory of Stephen King, he was snowed in there one night, and that's actually what and there was hardly any people there, and that's what got him, inspired him to write the Shining.
happy accidents.
I
You know,
know. So yeah, so I love the history of the Stanley Hotel and yeah.
well, hopefully when I go, you'll be my tour guide.
Oh,
Make sure I can make
absolutely.
it through there. Okay.
You got it.
Um, So one last thing, guys, I do have all of KJ's social media links down in the description. So make sure you're following her on social media, becoming a part of her family as well. If you're out in the LA area, maybe she'll come out of retirement at some point. You can go catch her do stand up at some point. I know that you would love to see that as well. So, in order for you to be such a big fan of the Stanley Hotel and to be a part of a horror film like Body Count, horror had to start for you somewhere, KJ. So now I would like to go back to the past and talk about what got you started in the horror genre, your first horror movie. And KJ, the first horror movie you watched was.
You asked me this question, and it's so funny because it kind of changes for me. But I grew up when there were no parental controls. Okay. So then my parents could not, make sure, check what I was watching. And we had the full package of like HBO, Skinamax, Showmax, all of that, Showtime. So I always grew up like I found Nightmare on Elm Street is like one of the first Nightmare on Elm Street and Chucky. Those were just the first ones I just grew up with. They were just a staple. I was obsessed with Dream Warriors. I thought it was so cool. And definitely Chucky because I love the, occult kind of, I love a good, rich backstory.
Mhm.
I love that as much as I love and appreciate those brilliant, beautiful one-liners that
Yeah,
these villains become known for. So those are my two favorite things about horror films. And so yeah, I just grew up watching that late at night, unsupervised, and it was just like such a cool. It what it did is it never scared me. It just kind of opened up this untapped like creative world inside of me. Right? It's like the idea of dreams being so powerful and being on a different plane and level that things can happen,
hmm
our spirit and so what happens to our spirit, like the whole death thing. Okay, enter a Chucky doll, like it just opened up this whole creative universe that I thought was just really cool and magical and not scary. It's just like it just got me thinking.
right. Well, since we're really focused a little more on Chucky here, let's dive deep into that one a little bit. We know you watched both of these, at very young age. I'm
Yeah.
with you. We didn't have, parental locks, parental
Yep.
controls. You went to
Yep.
Channel 5, you had Showtime. You went to 21, you
Yep.
had HBO. They were
Yep.
there.
Yep.
Um, do you remember watching Child's Play with somebody for the first time, or do you think that it was like a lone watch when you were channel surfing as a little kid?
Honestly, I think it was probably at a sleepover, just with friends, and my sister would always tag along. And my sister has a very, and rightly so, because I'm with her. She does not like dolls at all, like to this day. But yeah, and my dad, and again, like this was when like my dad finally caught on and knew what we were watching, but he would come in and scare us while we were watching it. So yeah, I think like a lot of those movies like were it was me for either forcing my sister or
Yeah.
yeah, with friends over. And then I would just do it on my own too, because I never wanted it to end. I think I was one of the few people in my group of friends growing up that was just absolutely obsessed.
Mhm. And Child's Play, it's very well known that to people that know Sledgehammer horror, that know Ken Sledge. Child's Play is my favorite horror franchise of all time. I'm obsessed with Child's Play. It's a franchise to me that I think is very, very special. And
Mhm.
in this first film, there's a lot of scenes that are so effective and so they reach out and grab you almost. But do you remember which scene it was that affected you the most?
Oh my God. Okay. Well, one, I love it that the locations in the first Chucky so simple,
Yeah,
so simple and so effective. Like we're just in this apartment, right? With his mom and the son. It's just great. And I would say, yeah, probably the part where he's getting chased and like he gets into the toy factory, right? And he's surrounded and he does that voodoo or whatever it was.
Give me the power, I beg of you!
And I know enters the doll. That was probably my favorite, most iconic scene. With the effect, even those fun, simple special effects that they had with like the storm and the
the
lightning,
clouds.
the
Yeah,
clouds.
when
I
he's finally
know.
taken over the Dow for the first time after he's been shot. Like,
Yes,
what an epic opening to a
so good.
film.
Oh,
Um,
so good, so good. What such a it's always so smart and fun for me when they lead with action, right? And they get me into the story and they set up the story that way. It just I love that. I have trouble with the slow burn start horror movies.
okay.
I'm like, let me get into this world. Let's go. I'm here.
So then Child's Play is definitely a movie for you. This movie legit starts off with a bang, and you see Charles Lee Ray laying dead, and the Dow's possessed, and
Oh my gosh.
um,
Oh my
it's
gosh. Yeah.
it's I, that's it's such an amazing part of this movie, and it's such an integral part to the first three movies, especially. Later in the franchise, they don't do the Ade Dewey Dembele stuff as
No,
much.
no,
But the
they
first
don't.
three movies, especially, that the fear when you're a child watching this of a doll taking your spirit, and
Mhm.
taking over your body and putting your body into his doll body, that was terrifying when we were kids.
Oh yeah.
Um, and so there's a lot of scary moments in this movie. There's also a lot of great moments. I think that Child's Play 1, while it is funny, it's not as funny as the later entries. There's still a lot of real serious horror in this movie.
Yes.
Do you have a favorite scene from the first Child's Play movie?
I think who was it? What was it? A babysitter that was watching him that got yeah that and with the yeah and she's just trying to get him to go to sleep and yeah and then she's just off like alone like the first real good kill that the Chucky doll
Right out the
gets him to
window.
right out the window.
You know.
So iconic, so good, so reminiscent of so many other classic horror movies too of like out the window and like
Hmm. And that's the we don't even see Chucky throughout this whole moment. We just see things from his point of view, and then you see her turn around and
yes.
get the hammer to the head, and go out the window. And Aunt Maggie,
He said that Maggie was a real bitch and got what she deserved.
that's one of the
That's
first big
Maggie.
kills,
That's Maggie.
in our childhood. And
Yeah.
Child's Play itself, obviously now is a huge franchise. Still got the TV show going. Unfortunately, it has been canceled.
I
But
know.
rumor is we are getting a new film. So since
Yes.
we are talking about a franchise, I always like to ask, which film of the Child's Play franchise would you say is your favorite?
Which film?
Yeah, and the franchise would be your favorite film of the franchise.
Oh my God. I don't know. I liked the what was her name? It starts with an N, but she was handicapped. She was in the wheelchair and she
Nika.
Nika, yes. I like the one that introduced her. I like it when they're in the mental asylums. I think that's fun too. But I mean the first one that sets it up the entire Chucky universe. I mean, thank you,
Yeah.
Don Mancini. And he just had a birthday. Like, yay, happy birthday, Don. Yeah, thank
Yes.
goodness for him. And yeah, the TV show is iconic too. And like bringing Devin Sawa in, who I also grew up like with him in horror movies. And it just the TV show has a new special place in my heart. And but the original Chucky, I did watch the updated 2019 remake, which is fine. It was fine. It actually wasn't as it was better than I thought it would be. But yeah, the very first original Chucky, and I mean, the actor that plays Charles Lee Ray, like he's fabulous. I mean,
Oh yeah.
and the Bride of Chucky is great too. I mean, when they brought Jennifer Tilly on, like like I did not even. She was just perfect for like Tiffany, and then playing Jennifer. Like it's
Yeah.
so
That was
good.
so good. I hope to someday be able to play poker with her. That's like a bucket list thing for me because I love playing poker, and Jennifer Tilly is an amazing poker player, and I would really love to be able to play with her someday. That's seriously like on my bucket list is to sit down with Jennifer Tilly and play a game
Oh,
of poker.
oh, I
Um,
really hope that happens. That would be
Thank you. I
amazing.
appreciate that. That'd be awesome. And it's funny because you talked about it a little bit. Because I usually at this point of the show, I like to ask, would you like to see your first horror movie remade? That obviously just happened in 2019. And I have opinions about that because as a huge Don Mancini Child's Play purist, I was
Mhm.
furious
Yes,
when I found out about it.
yes,
I went in
yes,
and I watched it, and I was like, you know what? They changed enough. There was no Charles Lee Ray, which I thought was super respectful.
yes.
But if you ask me, and this is something again for people that have watched the podcast that have heard me and Ashley give our in-depth talk about it, I think the one thing that could have saved this movie is if they would have called it Buddy from the world of Child's Play. You didn't have to have the doll be called Chucky. You didn't
Right.
even have to have the doll look like Chucky. But
No.
then if they would have done that, we could have gotten Buddy Bear from the world of Child's Play, and they could have continued it with the Buddy Bear.
Right.
Because they changed enough to where it's really not even, if you take the character names out of it, there has no death. Like with the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, they have carbon copy things.
Right.
With Friday the 13th, the remake, it's pretty much
Right.
an essentially a remake of one, two, and three altogether.
Right.
With
Yes.
this movie, it was so different in every aspect.
Yeah.
You didn't even have to title it that. You could have been respectful to Don Mancini. You still could have gotten the money from using the term child's play by
Yes.
because the doll wasn't even called a good guy anymore. It was called a buddy doll. So
Yeah.
Buddy from the world of child's play. And it then because they that studio didn't even own the rights to the name Child's Play 2. So even if that movie would have been extremely successful, you wrote yourself in the corner by not having a title for your second film. Bam, Buddy Bear from the world of
Yes.
Child's Play. You could have
Yes.
continued it because when I saw that Buddy Bear, I was like, oh, that would be a sick movie to have that bear. Um,
Totally right.
so
Agreed.
that's kind of how we felt about it. You
Agreed.
kind of screwed yourself by calling this movie Child's Play. You didn't
Oh,
have to. There's no
absolutely.
reason to.
No, no, no. And it was totally like AI is evil. I get it. Okay. Yes. Skynet. All right. We've been there. We know. We know.
Mhm.
Like,
I agree.
but yeah, it's like, yeah, it wasn't like nothing with the supernatural, nothing with voodoo. Yeah. It's like you had the names and then like an evil doll, but it's AI. Okay.
Yeah. Like you
And
had no reason to, like it's even the way they did it, because Mark Hamill's great. And
yes,
when they were like,
yes, yes.
"What is my name?" and he was like, "Han Solo." Did you say Chucky? It was like that was. I get you wanted to do that for a Star Wars joke because it was
Yeah.
Mark Hamill, but it didn't make any sense to me.
No.
So I would have much
No.
rather him, like I said. But I could wax poetic about this all day. But
Agree. Yeah.
uh, I
Same. I
love the
know.
fact that
I didn't even watch it until this year. That's how much I was like, I can't.
see, and I when I watched it, I loved it. I thought the kills were great.
The
I
kills
thought
were
the
fantastic.
acting was great. There were real moments that scared me. There was real like good jump scares. A lot of moments where I genuinely, this is for Tupac, like shit that really made me
Yes.
laugh out loud.
Yes.
So it still kills me that they named it what they did.
Agreed. And I think they could have done a spinoff of like in the same scope universe of Chucky. Yeah. Yes. We just like real quick, I have to bring up, it still makes me laugh and smile when I think about it, but the grandma or the mother or whatever in the car, the
Yes.
self-driving car.
Uh, like I said, there were so many great moments about this movie, and people just didn't even give it the time of day because it was called
Oh,
Child's Play, and the doll looked dumb. Like it did. The doll looked stupid.
yeah,
But
I would have watched it a lot sooner if they did what you
yeah,
suggested. Absolutely, absolutely.
get a hold of me, guys.
I know.
I'm
We'll
there
call
for you.
them up.
If you need marketing, I got you.
You
Um,
do. It sounds like it. I know. We need to get into slide into Don Mancini's DMs, man.
yeah, no shit, Don. I could have helped you out, buddy. So we've talked about Child's Play and what that means to you. But here for a second, my little buddy Ghostface is here, and he has a question for you. What's your favorite scary movie, KJ? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
All of them. I hate this question, but I will tell you one that has a special place in my heart. And that would be, yeah, Mr. Ghostface, it's you. It's Scream. Because like when I grew up, I was watching Nightmare on Elm Street, Chucky, Friday the 13th, all on TV, okay?
Hmm.
On YouTube at home. So one of the first iconic horror movies of my generation that I got to see in the movie theaters that I had to sneak into because it was rated R, yep, was Scream.
Yep.
And it was so, and I love Drew Barrymore too. Like I was obsessed with Drew Barrymore before this movie. And I felt like, and it was like they were talking about it's her big comeback and all this stuff. And I immediately fell in love because it was funny, it was clever. You know there's a backstory and an origin story, but you're figuring it out as the movie progresses. There's all these throwbacks to like, what do you think you're in some Wes Carpenter flick or something? Like
Yeah.
it just like so funny. Live her alone. Like it is just the cast worked out so well together. It was funny, it was relatable, it was just such a joy to watch. And
It
starting
made
out,
it cool to be a horror fan.
yes, oh my god, it was just all across the board, all across the board. It was just so much fun.
Before 96, horror was for October 31st.
Right.
Like, but after Scream, and I always sound so geriatric when I say it like this, but Scream made horror hit. Like it made it
Yes,
cool to
yes,
watch horror.
yes,
I grew up in a video store. My mom and dad owned a mom and pop video store. And so like I was always the weird horror kid that liked punk rock music and had green spiky hair, like
yeah.
I was that weird. Then Scream came out, and I remember people would come to me for movie recommendations after that. Like, and I
Yep.
was like, man, fuck you. Like you thought I was weird, man. Like, but now this movie comes out. So like it's weird. Like for the longest time, I was like a closet Scream fan. It was like to me, I was like, Scream was like Blink 182. I was like, look, they're amazing punk rock, but they totally sold out. And they did it to make money. Like that was me with Scream. Like as a punk rock kid, I was like, oh, this is just a sellout horror movie. Deep down, I was like, yeah, I own it. Of course I could quote every line. Everyone's a suspect, like of
Everyone
course. But like that's how I felt as a kid, like I was like, this movie sold out horror, and it really didn't, like Wes Craven made something so iconic and such a beautiful piece of art that will live on forever. And
yes,
um
yes,
I love that movie so much, and it's contributed so much to the horror genre.
it
Whether
has.
you love or hate Scream, that movie changed the horror genre. I mean, you look at the movies that were coming out 93, 94, 95.
I know what you did last summer came right after it, like all of the,
Urban Legend,
yes,
Valentine, like it
yes,
made cool horror movies after that.
yes,
So
yes.
absolutely. So
Can
um
I be very LA for a moment, real quick?
yeah, please.
I hate being so LA. I don't want to name drop. I don't like name dropping, but because I've been in the stand-up comedian comedy world, I had the pleasure of meeting Jamie Kennedy,
Yeah.
Randy. And I can tell you that he is Randy. Like he is fun, funny, smart, and he has been one of the kindest humans I've ever had the luxury of meeting and talking to in LA. He's great.
We got to meet him at a convention, and we talked Scream a little bit, and then we talked about Malibu's Most Wanted because I love
Yes,
that movie.
yes,
And I still look, yes, guys, I'm a huge horror fan. My favorite Jamie Kennedy moment of any movie, it will never be topped. It's his moment in Harold and Kumar where he goes up to him when he's pissing on the bush, and he's like, "Just your special bush. You're the king of the forest." Like that to me is like one of
Yeah.
the best moments from any movie ever. And
Oh my God.
um, I can't tell you how many times I'll be standing in the bathroom at a urinal or something, and someone will come in and I'm like, "Why'd you come piss next to me at this urinal?" Even though that's the only other one. People are like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "I was here first, man, and you came up and started pissing next to me. There was all these other urinals here." Like, I just love that moment so much.
So
So,
fun. So fun. Oh yeah, yeah. No, he's funny. And he came out with a new movie, Don't Suck, which is like a riff on stand-up comedy, but a horror genre because it involves
yep,
a vampire wanting to do stand-up comedy. So I love it how we keep that comedy and the horror always ebbing and flowing.
intertwined.
It's a beautiful
So
thing.
I have had an amazing time hanging out with you, KJ, and talking about your first horror movie and your favorite horror movie. But before I let you go, we always
Yep.
bounce back to the same question. We're going to go back to Child's Play. And what we're going to do is rank this movie on a skull count. Now, we're not ranking it on acting, production, score, direction, nothing like that. We're not being critics. All
Okay.
we're doing is ranking Child's Play on how much it affected you on your first viewing. So, zero skulls being not effective, five being extremely effective. You can use half and quarter skulls anywhere in the middle. KJ, what would your ranking of Child's Play be?
5.
I figured. It's
Oh
in
my
my
God,
script, so I gotta
5.
ask. You
5.
know,
After that, my both my sister and I were like, one, we're like, get rid of all the fucking dolls. We still, as we grew up, like and went through high school, my stepmom had this room of all of her dolls from her childhood, and we would always be like, "Not it. I'm not the one staying in that room." Like,
yep.
but
Bye.
yeah, exactly. Like, fuck no. And it was just like it just stuck with me. Like I said, the Charles Lee Ray, that origin story, the funny, like it really, it's always been in my head of like comparing other horror movies to it, like do they have the fun funny one liners, like is it shot in a way that's interesting, right? First of all, because you like
Hmm.
you talked about having the doll perspective versus the killer
Yeah.
perspective versus the what's going on, and it just being able to take the occult and make it something that like, oh my god, this could totally happen, like
Yeah.
like all of it. Yeah, yeah, it's just, yeah, it's something that has stuck with me forever. And Don Mancini and Wes Craven forever in my heart, like just forever.
And it's a perfect ranking. I totally agree with you. It's my favorite franchise of all time. So I couldn't agree more. Um, I do
Yes.
want to once again thank you for being here, KJ, but unfortunately we are at the end of the third act. The credits are about to roll and the curtain's about to drop. But before that happens, guys, I want to make sure you remember I have all of KJ's social media links down in the description. So please click those links. Make sure you're following her to become a part of everything that she's going to be a part of coming up. So KJ,
Yes.
please don't go anywhere. Oh, go ahead.
I have a new thriller horror coming out. Well, I'm starting production on it on March. So Strings, keep an eye out for it.
See, and the best way to do that by following her on social media because
Yes.
you're going to be able to keep up with all the things that she's doing, and it'll have the release date on there as well. So maybe once we get a little bit closer, we'll bring her back on and talk to her about it and give you guys a little behind the scenes stuff so you can learn a little before you watch the movie, spoiler free, obviously. So
Yeah.
make sure you guys are joining us for that. KJ, please don't go anywhere. I do have a couple more questions for you. Everyone else, if you haven't already, please like, comment, and subscribe. It does help build the channel more than you know. And follow Sledgehammer Horror on social media. Those links are in the description as well. But until next time, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.